So I guess I'm gonna start out with let's make sure we're all in the ballers and bagpipes campaigns. That way we can use macros that are gonna be beneficial for our characters. Otherwise it seems kind of redundant to go through all this and then not really have anything to play test with on Friday. Um so to start off though, I guess I'm gonna give like a brief overview of what is a macro, what is a script, what is an API, and how they kind of all work together. So a macro is basically an automated input sequence that imitates keystrokes or mouse actions. Macros are typically used to replace like a repetitive series of actions. So if you want to not have to click 7 times to get through a menu action or something like that, you don't want to click on the journal and then click on chapter 3 and then click on the bank heist loot or whatever. Macro is basically just doing those things but an automated one button press of it. So a script is a script, or a scripting language is a computer language with a series of commands within a file capable of being executed without really being compiled, which it's a little bit complicated sounding when you word it like that, but that's the gist of how a script works. It's a very, very elaborate macro. What an API is, an API is an application programming interface, which is like a software intermediary that allows for two applications to talk to each other. So us connecting to Roll20, Roll20 is the API through whatever browser you're using. Basically, like when you connect to Roll20, the website sends data to a server. The server retrieves that data, interprets it, performs any necessary actions, and then it sends it back to your monitor, your desktop, basically. And that's basically what an API is. The API interprets that data and presents it to you with the information that you wanted in a readable way. That's basically how the three kind of work together. Any questions on that?
Yeah, can you say that all over again?
No, absolutely not.
I'm joking.
I was kind of hoping you'd say yes.
You can read my notes that I've written down.
Oh man.
So we'll go over basics, real basics of macros. You can do this on your own. You can watch on my screen, however you want to do it. But using slash commands in the text chat. More ketchup? Okay.
I would also like some more ketchup.
She is enjoying her chicken nuggets right now. So using slash commands in the text chat is a form of macroing. Using the slash roll 2d4 is a macro. It simplifies having to go over here, find the 2d4 on it, and click it. You're doing it automatic. So that is a form of macroing. It's not very efficient though. Yes, this input. You're right, Joseph. Thank you. And that's sending an input to Roll20's API, and the API is sending back the output, which is, in this case, 5 was my output. Within this text box, you can also do basic HTML markup. Similar to like what we do in Discord to make stuff italic or bold and italic. Example would be asterisk. This is italic. And it comes out as italic. Double asterisk for bold. 3 asterisks for bold and italic. And I forgot what these things are called, but you do 3 little oh geez, tildes? Tilde, not the tilde, but the other thing that's attached to the tilde.
Oh, that weird apostrophe thing?
Yes, to make the little code dialogue box there.
What? Didn't work. Oh, 4 of them don't do anything.
No.
Damn.
Yep. You can also link URLs. This here, if you put it within brackets, a bracket name, the naming of it in parentheses is the link. So when I put output You can highlight over where it says conditions. That's now a hyperlink. You can do the same thing with images.
Could I request that you also like output just whatever you're typing in quotes or something?
Yeah. I can. That's an image. All right. So this is. It's even doing it in quotes. It still links it.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Huh.
I can
Put it in Discord chat.
Discord's gonna do because it's HTML
Um,
markup. No, it doesn't. Okay, so in the Discord chat, you can see the how to format it. You put the square brackets around the wording, parentheses around the link, and it outputs it as a URL. If the link goes to an image, it'll change it to an image instead of a URL, like I did for the Roll20 logo. It's the same formatting though. You put it within the square brackets, and then put parentheses with your link. That's very, very basic of what you can do within the text box. From there, you can start going into kind of like how macros, where you can put macros in on your character sheet, your session. So there's two different locations for macros. There's character specific and there's campaign specific. Campaign specific are up in the drop down menu next to settings. Big giant thing that says macros. You can click add to it. That's where you would add a macro. It pops up a little edit section. You can name it, describe what you want to do, adding, one command or a role per line. The other place is within your character sheet. Hide real quick. See it. It's under your abilities and attributes section. The right hand side here is abilities. So if you're someone that has multiple characters or multiple pets or something like that, like Dynasty has her pet Yoshi, you can add macros for Yoshi on his character page and drag him down to your bar, or you can add him for your whole character sheet for the campaign. Two different ways of doing it. Resize it. A simple way of making a macro is using stuff that's already integrated within your character sheet. So anything that's a highlightable, clickable, like your strength roll, dexterity, initiative.
Wait.
Go ahead.
How do you have a plus 25 in strength? I thought it caps at 20.
He's got the belt of giant strength. It's
what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, ignore that. So that being said, stuff like strength. If I wanted to, I know I'm constantly rolling strength. I'm a barbarian. I play into strength as an advantage for everything I do because I'm constantly raging and I'm constantly throwing rocks at people or something weird. And I know I'm going to be making strength checks regularly. Instead of having to navigate to my character sheet every single time, I can drag this strength, click and drag the strength check. As I drag it down, you see the gray bar pops up that says add to your macro quick bar. Macro quick bar for me is located at the bottom of the screen. And when I drag it down into there, put it between the health potion, my whisper GM macro, and it adds it right there too. There it says Gandorf strength. That right there, I just made a macro. Now when I'm not in my character sheet, I don't have it up, I can click that, it rolls my strength for me.
Okay. How do I do this?
You do that. Obviously, I have a bunch of different colors down here. When you go down into it and you see this little gray bar pop up, that's when you know you're selected onto it. You can right click it. You can rename it. So if I want to say strength check, pick a spell, rename it, it renames it to strength check. If I want to be able to see it easier, I can change the color on it to something bright pink. I know I'm going to see that every single time. I'll be able to quickly hit it. While you're highlighted over it, get the little 4 arrows, you can drag and move it all along your little macro bar here. If it's the only one you have, you can't really do nothing with it Once you get multiple in there, you can drag and move. With macros as well, Josie kind of showed it to everyone by adding it as a token macro for us with the health potions. Basically, you have options with your macros. So there's obviously a selection here that shows it in bar. In bar means this drop down bar down here. When I go into a macro and I click to show it as a token action, that sets it so that whenever I highlight and select my token, it'll pop up in the token action macro bar, which is the top of your character sheet, or at the top of your campaign page. Going too fast, or is everyone keeping up so far?
Wait, can you do that again?
Yeah. So say you just dragged your macro down there, whatever it was you made as an example.
Okay.
You can open it up. When you go to your edit your macro, there's an option if you scroll down to show as a token action. When you select it, save it. You select your character token. It'll pop up in the top left where your token action bar is.
Wait, so can you do that with like the strength? Because I don't see the strength there.
Yeah, I don't think if you drag
I don't
it
think you
down to your
drag.
bar, I don't think it'll make it for you.
Okay, then my bad, I didn't know that. Okay, so then let's make a simple macro then, so we can play around with it some more. We'll go up to the collection where the macro where I'm at right now, the character sheet next to settings. Add a macro. We can name this test. Our test will be to roll 2d4 plus 2. Say it's a health pot macro. While you're making a macro, you can test it anytime to see and make sure that your code works. I click test macro, it outputs it into the chat here. So we know that, hey, this works. Slash command.
You have multiple keyboards? Oh,
Yeah, so I use a wireless keyboard and a wireless mouse for my
I guess that makes
laptop and
sense.
my work, and then everything else is for gaming.
That makes sense.
So when you test a macro as an output like that, we'll just leave it like this for now and save it. You go into your bar on the side here, you'll see test pop up. So right now, you just made a macro, but it's not anywhere on your sheet. You select in bar, it pop up in the bottom of your macro bar at the bottom. Redundant. Same thing applies. You can rename it, color it, do anything like that. From here, you can just click it. It'll roll whatever, or it'll do whatever the macro is assigned to do. From there, you can go back to that same macro, open it up, click to show it as a token action. Once you save it as a token action, select your character token. You'll see it pop up in the top left now.
Interesting.
Just to
Okay.
clarify, it's not just it's any token that you can control.
Yes. It's
Um,
not just that
for the
specific character.
yeah, exactly.
So one thing that Josie as a DM can do is assign it, make macros like that. But he has an additional option that he can assign it to individual characters or all characters. So
Yep.
what Josie had did is Josie and I made this healing potions macro. So when we click this and we're on our character tokens or any token, it'll pop up a little dialogue box with us, query box it's called. You can drop down and select which potion you want to use. Submit it and output it to chat.
Ooh, okay.
And in case you were wondering why there's numbers, unlike your personal macro bar, I don't think you can change the order of your token actions. So I just added some numbers to make things that you might use frequently easy to access. Like why there's a 0 in front of the end turn or a 1 in front of the healing potions macro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Oh. So if you do like hashtag. Oh no. Test. Can I? That's cool. You can do like hashtag and then name of the macro.
Yep, that's another thing you can do. So that's the HTML output or HTML markup to how the API can grab another way for the API to grab the macros using the hashtag. Just hitting the hashtag in there, it gets the hash mark, however you want to call it. Pops up a couple, whatever's inside, and as you start typing, narrow it down. So
how do you get rid of this?
how do you get rid of it? Good question.
No, like the strength thing at the bottom.
Oh, you want to get rid of a macro off of your bar? Simply just click it, drag it off your bar.
Alternatively, you can untick the in-bar thing.
Yes.
But I guess if it's dragged from your sheet, then you don't have that option. So just drag it off.
So you have to get it to where you can click and move it on the bar, and just lift up on it. It should kind of turn opaque and gray out. Drag and drop it off, and it removes itself.
That's the opposite of opaque.
It's not working.
Sorry. All right. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
See how my mouse kind of changes when I'm over the test to this little 4 arrow thing?
Yes.
Click it and drag it like that, and it moves.
Mm-hmm.
Lift up.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, alright. Okay, I was like wondering why. I was like, it's not. I tried deleting it and didn't work. Okay, that makes
Gotcha.
sense.
While
That's
we're
great.
here, since we're doing this mini macro seminar, so you guys may notice how whenever you test a macro, it outputs it to chat. And if you wanted to make a macro in game, that could obviously be a little distracting, right? There's a very simple command, which is just It's the command itself. I'll type it in here. And now, like, using what you know about making macros, why don't you guys try making a talk to myself macro? So you go to your macros bar, make this simple little thing. It's just one line of code, and then see if you can put that into your little bar at the bottom. And whenever this is so it's a toggle. And whenever it's toggled, anything you type or output, nobody else will see.
Yep.
So you can really, really conveniently test macros without disturbing the chat box.
If you're ever in like a super heavy RP game where a lot of stuff's done through the text box, you might not want to flood it with stuff in sessions like generic random rolling, because it only holds a certain amount in the chat long before it gets basically archived.
Yep. Or if
so
you're a GM and you don't want, and you're testing making enemies, and
You're
you
making
don't want to,
enemies, yeah.
you're making enemies, and you test an attack, and it's like, oh, spoilers, whoops.
So when you do that and you output it, you'll see in the bottom right of the chat box that says talking to yourself. It also gets a little notification saying you are now talking to yourself. And turn it off, like you said, just output it again. It tells you you're no longer talking to yourself. Congrats.
Wow, they actually can't see anything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then if I press it again, you're no longer talking to yourself. Wow.
Wow.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
All right. So with macros, what I like to do is I like to make stuff that makes my life easier. So since I'm a melee character, I frequently use the same weapon when attacking. I can take my weapon I normally use, for my example, is my sword of sharpness. Kind of bound by it. I have to attack with it at least once. So what I did to make my life easier, instead of having to navigate through my sheet every single time I want to use it, I just drag my weapon, my attack, drag it, drop it in macro bar. It's already there, so it's kind of redundant. When you drag and output something from your macro bar like that, like a weapon,
Maybe there's too many.
You might need to find like an actual space to drag it in. Yeah, you got to go like below the. There you go.
Oh my
so
god.
when you drag it like that, it outputs kind of like the whole line of API script. So where it would grab that script from.
It's the
So
pointer.
obviously, when I grabbed that, I grabbed my enchanted silver greatsword. Obviously, this doesn't say enchanted silver greatsword. So I would rename this. Name it something I'd recognize. But once I have that macro, it does the same thing. If I click on my character sheet in my attacks, click it, it does the same thing there, except I crit, as it does in the macro bar. When I do the macro bar, I get the same output. So that's another thing to do, something that you use frequently. That being said, I don't use so something that's simple that is frequently used is when Josie will ask us randomly, just roll a d20. It doesn't necessarily need to be a modifier or anything like that. Bad example. Wait. Sorry. So say I want to make a macro just to roll a d20. I don't want to navigate over through the sidebars and break my immersion. So roll d20. And then when I add it to bar, it pops up. I have a quick little reference to roll a d20 whenever Josie feels being indecisive on what he wants me to do.
Ooh, you can do spells too.
Yep, you can do spells. You can do anything that's a clickable action on your character sheet, even stuff in like your initiative, your hit dice rolls, your death save rolls. If you die a lot and your name's Aragon, hot bar some death saves.
That hurts.
Not to throw shade, but just throwing shade. Same thing goes with items in your inventory. Feats are a little bit different. I will show you something that's a neat little trick. With a feat, if it's something you want to reference, like my danger sense, I like to just remind Josie every once in a while that I have this. If I output it to chat, that's the last thing that I sent. When I go into the chat box and I hit the up arrow, it gives me a bunch of text with formatting in it. So I have drag this up to make it bigger. Oh,
Yeah, the expand chat size thing is kind of stinky.
So danger sense is what I output by clicking in my feeds. This is what is the API is seeing and outputting. I can take this whole entire copy Discord. And then when you make a new macro, I want to call it danger sense. Paste that whole thing into there. And when I test the macro, it's out of the way. Sensitive. So sensitive.
Yeah, it's bad design.
Anyways, when you test the macro, boom, right there.
Wait, how did you get the macro stuff again? Like the API or whatever you call it.
Go into the chat, just click into the chat box itself, and hit the up arrow on your keyboard.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. All right. Pretty interesting stuff.
Josie, why is this like this?
It just is. You just kind of have to take a size and deal with it.
I will play with that later. Frustrating.
Yeah.
So I guess that being said, Aragon, what's a common spell that you cast on your character regularly?
Well, I would like to think that I use a vast array of spells. Not even joking. Like honestly, okay. I would like this macro thing would be really useful for my next PC, but for this PC, like I use so many different spells that would probably just be easier if I go to my spell tab. Or
That's
I would
fair.
make
You
a
are
macro of
mainly caster, so I guess it's
like I use a lot of different things.
yeah. Think of a better example for what you. So you, what's you have I guess your earth elemental is something that you've changed into a few times now, right?
I think it was
Yes.
just once, but
Was it?
One. Yes.
It's bad example to pick you because druids are kind of hard because you use so much
I
different stuff
think
constantly.
it would be.
You
I think
use it for like
Galadriel.
your death saving spells.
Oh.
That's I don't want to.
Or not death I mean like
Again.
strength
I'm not
saving,
going
dex
to.
saving, con saving.
Not gonna take the time to teach him how to fucking death save macro. It's
Well,
easy.
no, I didn't mean to say that.
I mean,
guess-
I think Aragon doesn't do anything. I think repetitively, but I'm thinking like for example, Galadriel. You know, Yoshi only has like 2 things,
Right.
so it might be more beneficial for her at least to actually make dedicated macros.
So I can.
And I use my oath bow and hunter's mark
Yeah. So
all the time.
Right.
with that,
Hunter's
I can
Mark. Yeah, that's
show you-
true.
So like I have obviously my slaughter sage form when I get into it. So I don't use that sheet very often, but it only has a couple attacks I can do. Right. So what I did was basically take the character sheet and the attacks that I use, and I drag them into a macro bar. I don't use it very often, but I also don't really necessarily need a whole character sheet up just to use 2 attacks. When I drag my longsword over there, it says Gandorf, Vessel of the Slaughter Sage, repeating NPC action, blah blah blah. So I would just take that, rename it to Slaughter Sage Longsword. Which, as you can see, I already have something like that over my bar over here. That's something to do that, so that way I don't have to have multiple character sheets open at the same time.
It's pretty cool.
Let's see something else. There are different types of things you can do within the macro, which this is where it kind of becomes more complicated than just dragging and dropping.
Oh no.
Just straight up scripting.
Yes, to an extent, yes. Like the health potion macro, obviously when you click it, it pops up a dialog box. So to pop up, have something like a dialog box like this to ask you what an input value. What do you want to do within this? There's basically queries you can do within the macro. So this is what I have open in the edit macro screen is the entirety of this healing macro that I made. This portion here is just showing the template framing. So when you do the output, this box that it's in is a template, which is a description template. It's commonly used. It's just like in any of the tags we use, it's that box is a description box. Spell sheets, spell stuff comes out as a description box. This question mark here with choose a potion of up to the where or the bar, that is a query. Query is what makes the box itself pop up. Separating these with commas, adding bold is more for the output and stuff. So it says this potion of healing is in bold, which is what these two asterisks are. This is the output for the potion of healing here. Each of these bars is basically a separate line. Each one of these lines in here makes a separate option for you to click. So within this healing, greater healing, supreme healing are each of these little sections. So healing is this section here. Greater healing, this section here. Between the bars are a line separator, which is similar to how you would do it with HTML markup. Issues with HTML markup, though, are some characters don't work next to and within other characters. So if I wanted to say make some see here to make a roller, wanted to choose roll, want to choose strength, roll 1d plus whatever our strength modifier is, so 7.
It's an equal sign.
Yeah, sorry. Looking behind my keyboard. Plus 7. Plus we'll say we have a modifier of sorts. Whatever we're fighting against, we have, I don't know, plus 2 for whatever reason. I don't know why. Sorry, it's kind of like long to type out real quick. Help that. So, starting here, we have our first bracket identifying that this is part of a query table. We have another bracket here to signify that we want to add another pop-up for adding our modifier. Then we close this bracket out with another bracket. We have one open already, and we need to add another close. A bar at the end if we wanted to add more lines. Problem with this is when I go to test it,
I think you're
doesn't come
missing
out
a
right.
bracket.
More than that. Problem is I have two brackets next to each other.
Oh,
So that's when you would have to use a gosh, I forgot the word. A separate HTML markup code, an HTML entity. Use there to replace the bracket, which how do I explain it? An HTML entity basically is a line of code that will replace that bracket with the raw value of what that bracket is. So the raw value of a closed bracket is hashtag 1, 2, a semicolon. Yeah, so HTML markup stuff like this. This isn't something I know off the top of my head. I'm looking this up right now as I'm doing it because I don't remember all of them. It's something that you'd have to grab. So to make something more complicated than just dragging and dropping and simple lines, you're gonna have to know a little bit more into HTML and how it works. This
Don't you need a bracket from the very first choose a role to close out everything? Or is that okay just to stay open?
should be okay because it's grabbing. This is a separator. The bar is a separator, and then it goes to the next line to read it. Space here. Let's mess me. Fuck, bad example. Okay. Let me. Oh, I also have like 7 of them. Let me make something more simpler that's not so annoying. So inline rolls. When you want to roll multiple things, say I want to roll my flame blade. I use a couple different things with it. I have to roll to see if I attack. I have to roll to see if I hit. I have to roll to see if I'm raging, if I'm adding an extra damage or not. And I added like a little verbal flair to it. So line here slash me slashes with his flame blade. This is to identify myself and send out a line of code saying that I'm attacking. The FX command, you can do FX itself and have them come out from a targeted area. So this is selecting a token, whatever one is on my token, and it just makes it glow with fire because it's a flaming fire blade.
Ooh.
And rolling, I know I'm going to roll a d20 to see if I attack. I know I need to have strength modifier in there since my weapon uses strength. And I get a +2 with it for the weapon itself, plus versus an AC. This versus an AC is just so I know as a reference what it says. It doesn't add anything. It doesn't check to see the target's AC or nothing like that. It's just a reminder to me of what it does. But what I do is I grab myself and it's strength mod. As Josie went over yesterday, strength modifier is the bigger number. When you highlight over it, it shows you a little output. It says at brackets strength underscore mod. And then if I attack with it, if it beats the AC, I get to roll 3d6. And if I'm raging, I get to add some damage for raging. When I test this macro, oh, I just select my macro, of course, my icon. I test this macro, it basically just pops up an input before outputting everything. It reads through the whole order of operations. And it asks me first, am I raging? This case, we'll say yes. And then it outputs, I'm slashing with my flame blade. It's rolling my 1d20, my +7, which is my strength modifier, and the +2 versus an AC. So I need to know what their AC is. I rolled a 12. If 12 beats it, then I've rolled my damage. I know I'm going to do 11 damage +2 for the damage to rage. This is I would say it's a intermediate level macro because there is some things that you are trying to gather. You're gathering what token you're selecting. You're gathering what your strength mod is for this example. Another thing that is useful for me is a dice roller. I don't like navigating this thing, and a lot of times you're rolling 66. It doesn't go up to 66. You have 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then you're rolling 3 and 3, and then adding it all up together, and it's a little convoluted for me. Something like this, it puts it in a default template, and I get a little dialog box of what it is, how many dice I'm rolling, and what type of dice I'm rolling. Show you an example. So how many dice am I rolling? I am rolling 6 dice. Edit. What type of dice am I rolling? We'll say it's a 6-sided dice. Do I have any type of modifiers that are being added to this? No, not at this time. And then it rolls out a result. When you highlight over it, it shows exactly what it did. It rolled 6d6. It says it's just a little fancy frame that says it's a dice roller. This template and the name of it is just to make it a little fancier than having it just say rolling 66, basically. Normally, without that, it would just be as if I typed roll 66. But can you do that and get similar results? Yes, it's just a quicker reference way or doing it, and you can do it with large dice rolls. Say you're doing a big old multiple, you're activating a trap that has multiple fireballs attached to it, and you're rolling 8d8s. Something that you would use that for. Sure, Josie can think else of why I would use this.
I
Killing,
mean,
whenever you're in like a mass healing cure wounds, you're healing multiple targets for whatever 64 at a time.
yeah. Once you start rolling more than like 5 of the same die, the little GUI becomes insufficient for that on the left.
opposite
More of a
is,
hassle. Yeah.
So that's just one way of making stuff simpler, especially when we're getting into higher levels. We're rolling, if this is real life, we're rolling big handfuls of dice at a time.
Yeah.
Attacking with a fireball, you got a handful of dice you're throwing out onto the table.
Or you're rolling one at a time and
or one
slow,
at a time for 5 minutes. Yeah. I will say that the macros themselves do follow an order of operations, just like every other basic math type thing does. And it follows ability checks, ability grabs. So anytime like grabbing that strength modifier in the flame blade macro, it's going to grab those values first. It's going to grab any type of ability thing that you're trying to grab. It's going to grab that first and have that data ready. And then it follows the rest of the macro. So it goes to, if there's any slash commands in there, it's going to start going through them from top to bottom. And then it follows your attribute calls and retrieves those data. So if you're going to grab my charisma score, it'll grab that as it's going through it, because it can change based on what the lines of code above it are doing. If it's adding a plus to the charisma score, something like that, it'll do it, and it'll repeat those steps 1 through 3 pretty much infinitely. Getting more complicated when you start adding role queries like the table outputs. Start adding inline roles, roles within roles, checks within checks. It starts following a different order of operations, and it becomes, you'll start getting string errors saying that it can't calculate the value. That's normally because it's not following a proper order of operations, which Roll20 itself explains their own role order of operations. You look into like the macro help wiki thing, and they have a whole article on how order of operations works. But just be aware that there is an order of operations. The more elaborate you get into it, the more you have to follow a kind of this then that before this then that type of process. There are different types of macros as well. There's what I would say utility macros, like the dice roller or the health potion. Those are different utilities that can provide a benefit for not just yourself, but for the group. I have a couple different macros that I use pretty regularly. I don't have to navigate, try to type people's names out while I'm trying to focus. I can just click Whisper GM, and it'll pop up an input thing to type in a message. So if I want to message Josie something real quick, click it, say, hey, what is going on? And it just sends a message to him. I also have one for tokens. I select a token, click it, it'll send a message to that person. Messaging myself, so it's messaging my vision token. Those are pretty simple to do. It's a basically a simple line of code. It's /whisper GM, a little query message, and you type in what you want to say.
Dear GM, the encounter is too hard. I have died 6 times. I think maybe more. I'm not really sure.
Something else that I recently just added. I made a reference. So if I want to not have to navigate, open up a new window, open up a new tab, whatever. I can just open a quick reference, click on something I want to quickly look at spells and not have to open up Google and search up Roll20 spells, blah, blah, blah. Click a link, takes me right to it. I don't have to do anything else. Link is currently broken. Take the back to use. But my fault. Not the application's fault or the macro's fault. That being said, you can link internal and external. You can have external document or external, like regular URL links. And you can link to stuff internal, like any of these handouts that Josie has given us in like our rules section for firearms or alcoholism. If when everything's expanded, there's a lot of stuff that Josie has provided us over the course of us playing. You keep stuff expanded and you're looking at stuff, or you don't remember where stuff is. It'd be useful to have a macro to quickly click it. It pops up AoE attacks and what our rules are for AoE attacks. So of having to navigate through the entire journey trying to find something. That's pretty much all I have as far as I know it's a lot of semi-useful and semi-not useful information.
Java all over again.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like you can go as deep as you want to. Like you saw how pretty much everything has a pointer. Like you can do a lot with macros if you wanted to go that route.
It's
and
all up to as complicated as you want it to be. If you want to have something that's basically automating your entire play, you can do that with an entire script. However, it takes away a lot of the fun aspects, in my opinion, for doing that.
Right.
You can automate basically your entire turn. I can click one button and it'll make my 2 attacks. It'll roll any type of health potions if I wanted to, a health potion, stuff like that. You can automate the entire turn if you wanted to. I don't believe that's a fun way to play, but it's an option if you were to build it that way.
I mean, another.
Go ahead.
After you. I was gonna say like a more potentially like interesting example if you were looking to GM is like, what if you had a transforming enemy, like you guys did recently with Bondrude, right? You could make a macro that would automate the quote unquote transformation. So in this case, I didn't do that. I was like right clicking and hiding the original token and then revealing the new one. But you could make a macro that's like, okay, this character is going to transform into this. You could even like add some special, SFX on top of that. That's something you could do with macros.
Definitely.
I'm sure you could also I'm sure you could also do the thing like maybe every time you cast a spell, it automatically creates a special effect. I'm pretty sure that you can do that as well. So things like that, right? It don't have to always be
Same thing too, like
quality of life things.
with
Josie can have a macro for his playlist.
yeah. So with the Sword of Sharpness, adding that little sound clip is also part of a macro. If I look into my Sword of Sharpness itself, there's a macro here in the description. Got a bracket to play a sound, and it plays AM audio play Bloody Blade. This is the sound that Josie added. Then right, you added this box.
Yeah, it has to be in the jukebox for
So the AM call for !Roll20 AM is to basically ping the jukebox and play audio file Bloody Blade when button
Yeah.
sound is clicked.
in this specific thing, I think Roll20 AM is the name of the API, which I believe is Audio Master.
Yes.
And then the double dash is like the particular command that's associated with that API.
Yep. That's right.
So
I remember that it's been a while since we did that. I couldn't remember exactly how.
yeah, because I put it in for like 2 things, and then nobody else really wanted it. So, which is fine, but it's there if we wanted to use it.
But yeah, still, it's something you can do. The same thing with this is I could change this. I could add image
Yeah.
to show a picture of this super sharp sword. I could add brackets, square brackets, image. Put a link to www.supersharpsword.com/image.png. I don't know if it work or not, but
Is that a real
I just came up with that
directory?
top of my head. No,
It'd be funny if it is.
it didn't work.
Okay, so it's a broken link, but
because the link doesn't exist.
Yeah,
But there
right,
would be
yeah.
an image there of sword. You can do that for spells too. Say you're using Burning Hands, you can add an image that shows some people with flaming hands. Same with Hex. If I wanted to add a picture of what I believe Hex looks like, I could add an image of that, and it pops up when I use Hex, cast Hex. A lot of that is for RP elements, basically. It adds to what's already there. Adding from our imagination, putting it into a visual form that we are sharing with other players. The sound of the sword hitting is what I believe this sword would sound like when it's hitting an object. You can do that with spells, you can do that with stuff like that to add RP elements to what would be a more boring thing to see. Not saying that rolling an attack is boring, but you can make it more than what it is already.
Wait, so I can add stormtrooper laser noises to my attacks?
So the thing about the noise thing is that you have to send me the file because I have to actually add it to the jukebox.
Yes.
Okay.
But theoretically, yes. Like once it's in there,
There are stipulations that are revolve around Josie being involved in it and having to add stuff for it to.
right?
Okay. Because I do have specific noises that I would like.
But it's totally within the realm of possibility.
And this is just like macros. Like we're not even talking about the various APIs that
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna get
you could play with. Yeah.
That's APIs are a whole different ball game. They are very elaborate scripts that. Do you want to show them the combat one as an example?
Yeah, I can do that while we're here. I mean, basically, it's a collection. There's scripts that very smart people and very dedicated people have made that add various gameplay changes. So recently, Eternal informed me of the existence of a very useful API called Combat Master. So I'm going to who's here? I'm going to put
I put my character at 100 and
Yeah,
yours still on there too.
I wanna get Ryan and if Dynasty's still here, just so they can sort of play around with it, because then you guys have a leg up for this Friday. So I have a couple of macros. Like one of them is to roll mass initiative, stuff like that. And so I'm just gonna put the three of you into initiative. Oh, hold on. I might need to restart the API sandbox because my APIs don't seem to be working. Yes, okay. That's fine. I'm gonna go do that real quick. That's pretty easy on my end. Wait, but if you can still play the sound, then the API should not be broken because you can still play the sound.
Well, the
So then is my
sound's in the jukebox though.
But the ability to call the command means that the API sandbox is working, right?
You are correct, sir.
Did I type this in wrong? Oh, you know what? It must be combat. Is it this?
CM, sir. Exclamation.
I'm talking to myself. That's why. Okay, that would be why. Because when I talk, yeah, okay, that's never mind. Okay, that's why. Okay, now it works. Okay. So this is fun. Initiative is automatically rolled. It centers the screen on the active turn, which is red. And actually, Gandalf, if you move your token around, the red thing will follow you, as well as that little turn timer. And Aragon, that green circle means that you're next. So yeah, there's a I don't think the green tracks because technically on your turn you're not supposed to move.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but there's a couple other things. So if you click on your token, there should be a new token action. Don't click on it. It's called 0 end turn. This is the command for this particular API that signifies that your turn has ended. For now, we're just going to experiment with it. I'm mainly using it for the timer and for the turn tracking because it's visually very easy now to see who's next, even if you guys don't see the turn order. But Ganondorf, let's say Ganondorf finishes turn. So Ganondorf, why don't you go ahead and click end turn? It should move to Aragon, who's next.
Yep. So when I'm on my token, you can see it up in the top left here. It says 0 end turn. I click on it. Boom. It moves over to Aragon. And it shows that Galadriel is now the next person to take their turn. Aragon
like
has
that.
a timer on it with whatever 120 seconds per turn.
Now, the issue with the end turn button and why I asked you not to click on it is because currently there's no way to isolate it so that only the active player can click on it. So technically all of you can end each other's turns and my turns. Honor system, so hopefully you don't have an itchy trigger finger. Don't do that.
Yes.
That's like literally the only downside. I'm pretty sure with the power of the API, I could find a way to like add a conditional statement like, okay, only when it's your turn can you click the end turn button. But I'm not motivated enough to
0 or something.
Right. But I'm not motivated enough to go that far because that seems like a lot.
So this is an example of an API addition to the game.
Right. Another ADI addition that you guys already have experience with is spell tracking or spell slot tracking and ammo tracking. Spell slot tracking is automatic. Ammo tracking does need to be set up because the game does not recognize what ammo you have in your inventory until you tell it. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with APIs. They each kind of have their own learning curve because they're made by people who wrote their own codes and their own commands and stuff like that.
Ugh.
I mean, like it's you work with them for the most part. In any case, if you're strictly a player, you're never going to deal with an API. Like it's always going to be on the GM's end because players can't add APIs anyways. Yeah, I mean the other thing about this is that it has condition tracking, which has to be done manually. So let's say I'm gonna pause the timer real quick. Let's say that Ganondorf has just been poisoned, right? Actually, and I can share my screen as well, just so you can see what it looks like on my end. If that's what you guys are sort of interested in, but I can't share my screen. Why can't I share my screen?
Because unfortunately.
Oh, I see it now. No. It was because of the share screen button was here. Okay, here we go. Right. So, right. I'm going to select Ganondorf's token, and as you can see, I have access to this menu here. That's the other downside about things in Roll20. Everything is going to be outputted to the chat box, which means that it can and will be pushed up by new additions, unfortunately. But let's say Ganondorf was just poisoned for 10 turns, right? With this API, I can click on the condition I want, set the duration, 10 turns, set the direction, which is basically to say, my Discord is beeping a lot. I don't know what, that's just whatever. The direction basically just says at turn end what value to add to that duration. Normally it's -1 because after each turn you lose 1, stuff like that. And you'll notice now that it outputs the condition in the chat box, and it gives him the little icon on his token. But Josie, where's the tracker? Aragon, why don't you end your timer? And I guess Galadriel can do that too. I guess anybody can do this really because you all have access to it. But now you can see in chat it output, and it's decreasing every time it's Ganondorf's turn, the amount of time left. So this is super duper useful now and super great for me because for you guys who have things like spells with duration or concentration, I don't have to keep track of that anymore. It'll just tell me in chat
Yay.
what effects are there, which is super useful.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
It's gonna be a little bit of a learning curve and
yeah.
adapting to it and remembering it all, and getting used to the flow of it. But I think it'll help not only you, Josie, remember everything, but also us remember what the heck we're doing each turn.
Yeah.
I'll remember. Oh yeah, I'm flying. I forgot I was flying. Or
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm prone. I need to stand up.
The biggest thing from your guys' perspective is definitely going to be the visual initiative, especially when that initiative icon gets, like, initiative box gets lost. But just visually being able to see who goes next is super nice. And the timer, which right now I have set for 120 seconds. We'll play around with that. There was an option for it to automatically go to the next turn once the timer ran out. I decided to not turn that on because that's like pretty intense. But if we get to that point,
when it's your turn, you can use the arrows to delay your turn or to end.
Yeah.
I don't know if those are set up, but
we can try. They should be. Let's turn combat back on. Let's see what happens. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Why is it not working? Did something happen?
Did initiative break?
You were just working a second ago.
Knock us out of initiative.
Right click a token and choose add a turn.
Something may have happened. Give me a second. Is my API broken now? Because I can't even open up the menu. What's going on here? Okay, yeah. It looks like something worked. Which is what may happen sometimes. Hopefully not too often. Hold on. I'm going to restart the sandbox. Oh, there was an error. Let's see.
Not working.
Yeah. Cannot read property ID of undefined at delay turn at command handler. Oh, okay. This is really interesting. It may have been that if somebody clicked the delay turn button when you were out of initiative, it might have broken the script because there was no turn to delay. So that might have been what broke it.
You have a trash can next to your condition.
Yeah, because I'm not poisoned. Get the crap out of here. Delete.
All right, let me see if this works now.
That's if I were to cure or something to happen. I can
All right, Ganondorf, why don't you click on the delay turn button and see what happens? So the other thing, all of those buttons in the chat box can be clicked by anyone, which may potentially be an issue, obviously, because
Yeah.
you could delay someone else's turn. Just just be chill.
Nice.
So I delayed it,
Don't.
and it put me behind Aragon.
Yeah, so it only delays it by 1 turn. Which, I mean, in this format is actually pretty nice because you can just keep clicking the button. You don't have to manually be dragged, but that's really all it is. And it does exactly what it does. Delay turn, unlike preparing an action, delay turn actually permanently moves you down the initiative order, which is exactly what it did in the turn order. You can see that Ganondorf, even though he rolled higher than Aragon, he's going after. So, yeah.
So would it be like that all the time or just for that turn?
That would for the entire
Mm.
combat. It permanently moves you down in the order
Okay.
when you delay your turn. That's a more D&D rule as opposed to a combat master rule. But
Gotcha.
I guess is there any questions anyone has regarding macros?
That was a lot of information.
Yes, it was. Sorry. Anything specific for your character that you think would be good in a macro format, right? That
Aragon.
if
I mean, not,
Aragon probably doesn't have much because a lot of his are spells. But
yeah. I mean, okay. So for the next campaign,
yeah,
maybe, but also like, how does that work with like global modifiers, like toggling on and off? Because I still need to make sure that those are toggled correctly.
right. So the drag and drop, when you drag and drop something, I'm guessing that for you guys, the most practical use application is just the drag and drop. If you were to drag and drop, it functions as if you click it on the sheet directly. So unless you made another macro to toggle your global damage modifiers, you'd have to click it in your character sheet.
That's what I was thinking. But is there a macro to like toggle it? Because that would be
Probably.
good.
There probably is. I just don't know how you would do that. But when it comes to
way-
anything coding related, Google is your friend.
So the way I would personally do that, say I'm attacking with my sword of sharpness, but I'm not necessarily sure if I have rage. I would use the sword of sharpness, right, without that example because I tagged them toggle them. But output it without having rage on. Hit the up arrow. That way I can get the whole output of my attack. Go to my macro tab. Right? And then
Paste it in there.
add a query table similar to what I did for the flame blade. Add if I'm raging or not raging. When I test the macro, it'll ask me if I'm raging or not. I am. And then it'll roll it, add my +2 damage for rage.
And you can do formatting to like, I'm pretty sure if you
Yes,
wanted,
I
you
can
could have
add
it
this.
automatically add it to the actual output.
can
It
add
can be a
this.
dice roll because I think right now it's just a text output for Ganondorf, but you could definitely make it a dice roll output. So there's ways to do it. It just kind of depends on how into it you want to get.
There's definitely ways to do it. I think the other way to do it too is within the attack itself. You can modify it. I add a damage to query. Hold please, because I don't remember if this will work or not. Output it. It'll pop up like that too.
It might break because it's not a numeric output.
Hmm.
I believe. Nope, it works. It says global
Oh.
instead of rage though. So then when
Oh,
I change it
you
to
changed it. I see.
rage. That's another way to do it. And then basically when I drag this to my bar, there, and I click it, it'll pop up every time whether I'm raging or not, which is your global damage modifier. You output it. Boom. Looks just like I toggled rage on from the global damage modifier down here.
There's probably a command that tells your character sheet to also change the toggle, if that might be more what you're looking for. I'm sure you could do that, because that seems very much within the bounds of what you can do with macros. So,
As with anything,
uncheck that damage, please.
as with anything though, that's I guess related to math and computers. There's a lot of different ways you can do one action. If I can click this to do sword of sharpness, I can manually output it all. I can add it into a macro. I can
Right.
make it into a script. There's a million different ways to do the same function, basically. So that was just one way I thought of quickly on how to do it, and both ways worked. I made it in a macro, added it as a verbal output or a verbal output, or I modified the table for it for the attack, and then you can still drag this as a macro too. So there's multiple different ways you can do it. It kind of depends on what you feel is easiest or what you feel is most makes sense for you.
While we're here, I know Ryan, you were interested in ammo tracking. You can totally go to the other campaign, because I can just follow along by looking at your character sheet.
Okay.
And Galadriel, if you also are curious, I have it already set up for, or not Galadriel, Dynasty. I already have it set up for Galadriel, but if you wanted to see how to add ammo tracking to a thing, like, this pretty much follows the same format. So, whenever, yeah, let me know whenever you're in. I'll be very careful with my words so I don't spoil.
Magic is real.
Magic is real.
Wait, do I share screen?
No. I can look at it because when I look at your character sheet, I can see everything you do.
Okay. Oh shit. The power.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy.
Wait, I need to stop looking at Eternal stream.
All right, for right now, I'm gonna stop recording.
Definitely. Thank you so much for this, Eternal.
No
It's
problem.
good information.